Welcome to the Rotherham SEND video, which gives an introduction to the SEND Tribunal Appeal Form 35. This form is to be used for all SEND Tribunal appeals, with the exception of a refusal to assess. Against the local authority's refusal to do an EHC needs assessment, then this is not the form for you to use. You would need to use 35A, and we can signpost you to a separate set of videos to help you with filling that form in. Use this form, 35, if one or more of the following on the next slide applies to you. Use this form if the local authority has completed an EHC needs assessment but refused to make an EHC plan. If you disagree with what the EHC plan says about your child or young person's special educational needs in section B of the EHC plan. If you disagree with what the EHC plan says about educational help or provision that your child or young person needs, which would be section F. Or if you disagree with the school, college or institution named in the EHC plan in section I, or if the local authority have refused to amend an EHC plan following an annual review taking place. You can also use this form if the local authority has not named a school or college or institution in section I of the plan, if the local authority has decided that the EHC plan is no longer needed and are going to cease to maintain it, if the local authority has refused to secure a reassessment of EHC needs, or if the local authority has refused to amend the EHC plan after a reassessment of EHC needs. The Tribunal can't hear appeals about the outcomes of an EHC plan in section E. All of sections B, your child's special educational needs, F, the support required to meet those needs, and I, the educational setting, can be appealed. It is not, however, usually recommended to appeal only section I. The local authority has a duty to name a setting which can meet a child or young person's needs, so they will be referring to sections B of the EHC plan and section F. So if either of these sections are not full or accurate, then the local authority may place your child in a setting which will not meet your child's needs. You have a right to appeal just section I, but you need to be confident that the sections B and F are full, accurate, clear and specific. If your concerns about your child or young person's EHC plan are around health or social care rather than education, you will still have the option of mediation. And if you're uncertain about this, contact your local SEND service or IPSE for advice. The Tribunal now allows parents and young people to include in their appeal the sections of the plan which cover health and social care. The SEND Tribunal will only have the power to make non-binding recommendations on health and social care, unlike the binding decisions that they make regarding special educational provision. However, it is expected that the Tribunal recommendations will generally be followed. If health or social care assessments are needed to identify all of a child or young person's needs, the Tribunal can order the local authority or their clinical commissioning group to undertake these before the hearing. The order could be made following a request by the parent or by the Tribunal as part of the case management powers. However, please be aware that you can't bring an appeal only about health or social care. You must also be appealing educational parts of the EHC plan of either B, F or I. So let's look now at some key points in the notes page of the Appeal Form 35. This part explains that if you are a parent or someone with parental responsibility or who cares for a child, you can make the appeal if your child is under the age of 16 or until the last Friday in June of the school year in which they turn 16. You can have a representative to act on your behalf. Further in this form, it explains what a representative is, but we'll look at this in our video in section 4. Most parents and carers do not have a representative for their appeal. If you have passed the last Friday in June of the school year in which your child turns 16, then the right of appeal passes to them. An appeal made by a young person will often be with the support of an advocate, or they could appoint a representative to act on their behalf during the appeal process, including at the hearing. The term advocate is also explained further down this page, but we will look at this role in our video in section 5. The law presumes that a young person aged between 16 to 25 years has the mental capacity to make an appeal themselves. But if they can't, then an alternative person acting in their best interest can make the appeal. This is often the child's parent or another family member. You can contact your SEND service or IPSIT if you would like to understand more about this. Now here we're looking at the downloadable electronic form, but you can of course print the form out and fill it in by hand if you prefer, using block capitals and black ink. You can then post the form to the address found on page 24 of the appeal form. Here is a reminder that you must let the tribunal know if there is any change to your contact details. You must inform the tribunal immediately if you move house or if you move to another area within a different local authority. The tribunal prefers to use email, phone or text to contact you, so it's very important to let them know if your email address or phone number changes. This is the first section of the form, and you will need to say here who the appeal is about by filling in your child's or young person's name, their gender and their date of birth. Moving on to section 2 of the appeal form, and this section focuses on the contact details of the person who's making the appeal. So, tick the first box if you are a young person aged between 16 and 25 making this appeal on behalf of yourself. Tick the second box if you are making appeal in the best interests of a young person who does not have mental capacity to bring the appeal themselves. Often this alternative person is the parent. If you're not sure about mental capacity, please give us a ring and contact us to talk to us about this. Tick the third box if you are the parent or carer making the appeal on behalf of a child who's under the age of 16. And remember, you can still make an appeal on behalf of your child if they are 16, but they have not passed the last Friday in June of the school year in which they turn 16. You will need to give your name and contact details and explain what relationship you have with the child or young person. For example, are you their parent or foster parent? If you would like to give the details of 2 people with parental responsibility, you can provide details of another parent here in section 3. Section 4 is to be completed if you have a representative, and if you don't, tick no and move on to the next section. A representative is someone who will give you advice on the issues in the appeal, prepare your paperwork on your behalf, and may represent you. If you have asked for a face-to-face hearing, they could be a volunteer from a charity or a paid representative like a solicitor or a barrister. Most appeals are made to the tribunal without a representative, but if you do have a representative, this is where you can give their contact details. You must let the tribunal know in writing if you decide to stop using your representative or if the contact details of your representative change. The tribunal can only send papers and information to one of the people named on this form. Often this is a parent, who is the person named in section 6. But if you have a representative, the documents will be sent to them unless you say otherwise. Ensure you have a representative permission to include their details on the form before including this. Section 5 is only if you are a young person making this appeal or a disabled parent who may be able to have an advocate. An advocate is someone who knows you, who understands what you think about the issues in the appeal and can speak on your behalf. For a young person, this could be a parent, a family member, a friend, or a paid advocate. A disabled parent may also be able to have an advocate. This is not someone who can give you advice on the issues in the appeal. If you have an advocate helping you, this is where you can give their name, their contact details. If they have an email address, it's especially important to fill it in because the SEND Tribunal likes to contact people via email. Ensure you have the advocate's permission to include their details in the form before including this. If you don't have an advocate, tick no at 5.1 and move on. If you have given details of 2 people with parental responsibility, decide between the 2 of you who will be happy to receive information from the tribunal services, as the tribunal will only provide information during the appeal process to one person. The contact details of this person will go in section 6. If you have an email address, address, it's important to include this, as the Tribunal usually sends information via email. But if you find email particularly difficult to make or receive emails, complete your postal address and leave the email address blank. Section 7 of the appeal form is about any other people involved in this appeal who are not listed in Section 6. This could be another person or an organisation who shares parental responsibility for your child, or someone appointed as a deputy by the Court of Protection for the young person. You can give their name and contact details here and confirm that you have told them about this appeal. However, if you believe they should not receive details of the appeal, you can explain why in this second box. If this does not apply, then just tick no at question 7.1 and move on to Section 8. Section 8 is about what you're appealing against, and you need to tick which boxes apply to your particular appeal. So you can tick more than one box. For example, let's imagine an EHC plan has been finalised after an EHC needs assessment and you disagree with the school placement. But you also disagree with the description of your child's special educational needs in Section B and the recommendations to address these needs in Section F. So you would tick these 5 boxes. I disagree with something in Section B, F or I of the EHC plan. This was not following an annual review as the plan has just been issued. And I disagree with what the plan says about my child's special educational needs and special educational provision to address those needs and the setting named in Section I. You might be appealing several sections of your child's EHC plan, but Section 9 is only if your appeal includes a challenge against Section I in the plan, which is the educational placement. If you are appealing only Section I, make sure you are confident that Sections B and F are full, accurate and specific. If you're not appealing against Section I, leave this section blank and go on to Section 10. If you are appealing Section I, within this section you must be clear whether you have a specific preference of school or provide a description of the type of school you're asking for. So for example, would this be a mainstream school or a particular specialist? Perhaps you haven't asked for a specific school as you are still visiting schools and you're not yet sure which setting to choose. So if you haven't yet chosen a specific school, in question 9.3, you can describe the type of school you wish your child to attend. For example, a specialist provision with an expertise around autism. If you believe that your child's needs are still not fully known, for example because assessments are still being undertaken, and you therefore do not know what type of setting they need, then just say that in this box. Please be aware that the Tribunal will expect you to be clear on what you are appealing for and to narrow your preference to a specific school during the appeal process if you haven't already done so. Therefore, ensure you arrange any visits to look at schools as soon as possible. If you're challenging Section I and you know which school or other educational setting you wish your child to attend, then name the setting you want in box 9.4 and give the setting's address and postcode here too. A parent or young person must contact the school or college or institution to let them know that they're appealing for a place there. In this box, the Tribunal is asking you to show that you have done this, including the date you contacted them and any response they've given you. So for example, you might write something like, I emailed Sunshine School on the 12th of February 2025 to let them know that I was appealing for my child to have a place at their school. You might then want to copy the email attached and the school's response letter saying that they can offer your child a place and that they feel they can meet the child's needs. Section 10 of the appeal form is the heart of the appeal, the reasons why you disagree with the local authority's decision. Now this might take a lot of time and thought. We'd recommend that you continue watching our video as this looks at how you can refer to any evidence you may be sending the Tribunal in support of your appeal. Please feel free to pause and revisit any relevant parts of the video whilst you're completing your form. When documenting your appeal reasons, keep your reasons short and to the point. You might want to separate your points into paragraphs or use bullet points. If you're using paragraphs, number them or organise them under headings. Refer to any evidence that backs up your points, and we will look at how to do this in a bit more detail. Always look at the reason the local authority give in their letter. You want to make a case against these reasons. Don't get bogged down in the history. If there is a long history of difficulties between yourself and the local authority and the process, let the evidence, for example, letters or reports, speak for themselves. If you'd like more space to write your views, you can write in the box, "Please see attached sheet," and you can then include this separate document when you email or post the form to the tribunal. But remember, clearly mark your separate sheet, "My reasons for appeal, section 10, and it's also helpful and important to include your child's name and date of birth. You should let the tribunal know if you're waiting for additional evidence. The kind of evidence you might send in could be a copy of a relevant medical report or assessment from a therapist or psychologist, for example, or perhaps a document provided by the nursery, school or college, like a SEND support plan or notes from a meeting. Or perhaps you might include your child or young person's views here. When you're putting together your reasons for appeal, you might want to refer to a piece of evidence that you're sending in, such as a report. So let's have a look at an example to give you the idea. In this form, the parent makes it clear what she's appealing against and says, "I disagree with the local authority's choice of school because it cannot meet my daughter's needs." In this example, the parent wants to give several reasons using paragraphs, so each paragraph has been given a heading and a number to separate the points clearly. So number 1, lack of training and understanding of autism. And the parent says the educational psychology report recommends my daughter is taught by staff with experience and expertise in teaching pupils with autism. The parent then refers to an underlined section of an educational psychology report that she's sending in as evidence. The parent then continues to explain why she's not happy with the local authority choice of school and states that the staff at the local authority named school have only received a one-day course to support pupils with autism. The school they want to see is an autism-specific school where all staff are trained, experienced in autism. Here's another example of a young person's appeal. The young person starts by explaining what he is appealing against, that he disagrees with the local authority's description of his special educational needs in Section B. He states that the local authority did not amend the plan following his last annual review, and this young person has chosen to use bullet points to make it clear. But he says at the end of the review meeting, he explained that he can get very anxious about learning and about talking to young people and teachers in college, and that sometimes he can find it hard to get up and go to college itself. When he's at college, he feels anxious and he finds it hard to concentrate and feels everyone is against him. He explained that at the annual review meeting, the college recommended that his high anxiety be added to Section B of his EHC plan as the new need, but the local authority did not amend the plan. Here the young person refers to the underlined section of the college's annual review report, which he's sending in as evidence, and which includes their recommendation to add a new need. In this particular case, it's also likely that the college also made recommendations about changes to the provision in Section F2, so the young person would also be making an appeal against Section F. Remember, if you're unhappy about your child or young person's EHC plan, but you're not confident what a good EHC plan should look like, take a look at our website for information on what to consider when you receive a draft plan. So now we're taking a look at Section 11 of the appeal form. And this section is only if you want to challenge the parts of the EHC plan which concern health sections, which are sections C and G, and social care sections, which are sections D and H. Parents and young people can disagree with the health and social care parts of an EHC plan in their appeal. However, you cannot bring an appeal only about health or social care. You must also be appealing one or more of the educational parts of the plan, which are sections B, F or I. The SEND Tribunal can recommend that your child's health and social care needs and supporting your child's plan are made clearer and more detailed, changed or included if they're missing. Please be aware that the Tribunal will not make decisions where professionals have made different clinical diagnoses or have made different recommendations about health provision. If you're asking for a health or social care recommendation to be made, the local authority will send a copy of the appeal to the health or social care provider. You can appeal the health part of the plan or the social care part of the plan, or both together. So depending on your child's needs, you may be responding to only one option at section 11.2. The first two boxes here are only if you're unhappy with the contents of section C of the EHC plan, which are your child's healthcare needs, and the contents of section G, the recommended healthcare provision or support. You might disagree with the way your child's needs are described, or maybe you feel there is information missing and that sections C and G do not describe all your child's health needs and all the support that you believe is required. Section 9.69 of the SEND Code of Practice says that section C must specify the health needs identified through the EHC needs assessment, which relate to your child or young person's special educational needs. The clinical commissioning group may also choose to specify other health needs. Perhaps you feel that your child's needs are correctly described in section C, but section G does not include support to match each of these needs. Or maybe you feel that the support is not written clearly and includes woolly statements like access to, which doesn't actually make it clear when your child or your young person can have the support. Healthcare provision should be detailed and specific and should normally be quantified as stated in the SEND Code of Practice. It should be clear what will happen, who will be involved, and who is responsible, the frequency of the support, and when that support may be renewed. It should also be clearly written, straightforward language which non-health professionals can understand. Remember, any health provision which educates or trains a child or young person is seen as special educational provision under the law, and therefore it should actually be in section F. An example of this could be speech and language therapy provision, which is provided by a health provision but actually educates or trains a child. This second box is where you can write your recommendations of what you would like the tribunal to make. So what would you like to see changed in the EHC plan? For example, if you believe that section C does not include all your child's needs, state clearly what you would like to see added, referring to any supporting letters or information from the health practitioner which describe these needs. Please remember that this process is an evidence-based process and there will need to be evidence to support your claim. If your child does not have any health needs or you're happy with what sections C and G say, then leave these two boxes blank. So now we're going to take a look at the next two boxes, which are only if you're unhappy with sections D, your child's social care needs, and sections H, the provision that's recommended for social care provision. Again, you might disagree with the way your child's social care needs are described, or maybe you feel that there is information missing. Section 9.69 of the SEND Code of Practice states that the EHC plan must specify any social care needs identified through the EHC needs assessment, which relate to the child or young person's special educational needs, or which require provision for a child or young person under 18 under Section 2 of the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act. Perhaps you feel that the support is not written clearly and includes woolly statements such as opportunities for, which does not clearly make exactly what should happen. Just as for health, the SEND Code of Practice says that social care provision should be detailed and specific and should normally be quantified. So it should be clear what support is required, who's responsible, how often this support will happen, and where it will take place and how long for. Just as for health, any social care provision which educates or trains a child is seen as special educational provision and therefore should be in section F of an EHC plan. So an example of this might be travel training. The last box is where you can write what recommendations you would like the tribunal to make. So for example, if you believe that section D does not describe all your child's social care needs, say clearly here what you would like to see added and what kind of provision you believe address this. Include any letters or reports or meeting minutes from social care practitioners which support your views. Again, remember this is an evidence-based process. Remember that judgments that Special Educational Tribunal make about health and social care are non-binding. This means that legally, health and social care organisations don't have to follow the judge's recommendations. However, even though they are non-binding, the local authority and healthcare commissioners are expected to follow them. Because the recommendations come from a specialist tribunal, they can't be turned down easily. If your child does not have any social care needs, or if you're happy with sections D and H, leave these two boxes blank. Sections 12 and 13 refer to mediation and the timeframe for sending in your appeal. Mediation is an informal way of settling disagreement with the local authority. At a mediation meeting, you can talk to a representative from the local authority, and an impartial mediator will make sure that everyone has the chance to share their views and is listened to. The law says you must first contact your local authority's mediation service and consider mediation if you're appealing about a refusal to issue an EHC plan or the contents of a finalised plan, or the decision not to amend a plan or the decision to cease to maintain an EHC plan. You do not need to consider mediation if you are only appealing Section I of the EHC plan, which is the educational placement. However, it's not usually recommended to only appeal Section I, as the SEND Tribunal will be considering whether the placement is able to meet needs of your child described in Section B and provide the support set out in Section F. Mediation can be a helpful way of resolving disagreements, but this is a voluntary process and you mustn't feel pressured into going into a mediation meeting if you don't want to. When you talk to the mediation service, if you decide you don't want a meeting, they will send you a certificate showing you that you've contacted them. You must attach this certificate or a certificate after a mediation meeting has taken place to appeal form. If you go to a mediation meeting and it resolves the educational issues, you won't be able to appeal to the tribunal on the health and social care parts alone. One of the educational sections of the plan must always be included in your appeal. We have more information about mediation on our website and YouTube channel. This video looks at Section 5 of the Online Appeal Form 35, and to fill in this section you will need the letter the local authority sent you with the decision that you're challenging. On the next slide we will show you an example of this. So in the first box on Section 13, write the date of the local authority decision letter. For example, if you're unhappy with the contents of the EHC plan, you will need the letter which was sent to you with the recent finalised plan. You must have a final plan and not a draft plan to appeal, and the letter the local authority sent you should say in it that you have your right of appeal. You must send your appeal to the tribunal no later than 2 months from the date on the local authority's decision letter, or within 1 month of the date of the mediation certificate if this is later. Here, question 13.3 of the appeal form is only for parents or young people who are sending in a late appeal or who have not got a mediation certificate but need one. If your appeal is late, you will need to explain in this box why you feel the appeal would succeed if the tribunal extends your time frame. If you don't give your reasons, your papers will be sent back to you and the appeal will not go forward. In the same way, if you don't have a mediation certificate but need one, you must say in the box why you have not been able to get one. If you don't give an explanation, the papers will be returned to you without being registered or seen by a judge. It's not a guarantee to put this in as a late appeal or an appeal without the relevant mediation certificate that your appeal will be taken on. If your appeal is not late and you have a mediation certificate, then you only need to fill in the first 2 boxes of this section and you can leave the rest blank. This is a letter template which the local authority in Rotherham uses to inform parents and carers and young people about an EHC decision which gives them the right of appeal. This particular letter is about a decision to issue a final EHC plan, but whatever decision you're challenging, your letter must give you the right of appeal, as you can see here at the bottom. The tribunal needs the name of the local authority against whom you are appealing, as they will need to contact them and get information. Section 14 is only for people who have recently lodged a different appeal to the SEND Tribunal. So for example, this could be a child or young person for a brother or sister, or the appeal about a special educational needs or a disability discrimination claim. If you have an appeal currently waiting to be heard, you can write the appeal number and claim number in this box. If you're not waiting for another appeal to be heard, please tick the No box and go on to section 15. Section 15 is where you need to share details of any order which a court or tribunal has made about your child or young person in this appeal, including the family court. Again, if this does not apply to you, just tick No and move on. So now we're taking a look at section 16 of the online appeal form 35, which focuses on the hearing. Since COVID took place, the Tribunal has conducted hearings either on paper, which means on the basis of the written evidence sent by the parent, a young person and the local authority, or by video, where participants are sent a joining link to the virtual hearing. Here you can state which is your preference. Some parents are really clear that they want the hearing where they can speak to the panel and explain their reasons in more detail and with more context, and also to hear more from the local authority about their reasoning and the evidence. If this is the case for you, tick the box which says you prefer a hearing you can attend by video or in person. However, other parents may be happy for the decision to be made on paper, in which case tick the box which says you prefer a paper hearing. This means that you won't actually attend the hearing, but the hearing will take place behind closed doors, all on the evidence that's been provided. Remember, a decision will only be decided on the papers if you, the judge, and the local authority all agree. The tribunal wants to know if you agree to an earlier hearing date, if one becomes available. Some parents are very clear that they do not want an earlier date, perhaps because it would be difficult to rearrange their work or childcare commitment, or they may think that they won't have all the evidence by that point. If this is the case for you, then tick the No box. However, for other parents, they may be really happy and able to have their earlier hearing, in which case tick the Yes box. However, again, this is not a guarantee that an earlier hearing date will be possible. So moving on to section 17, this gives you the chance to say if you need the tribunal to make any adjustments for you to make it easier for you to take part in the hearing, whether it be via telephone or video conference. So for example, a parent or young person may need a bit extra time to process questions, or maybe they find it easier if key information is repeated. If English is not your first language, you can ask for an interpreter in a video conference. If you have a hearing impairment and you do not want the hearing to be decided on paper, a video conference may be the most helpful, and you can ask for a signer. You can say here what language or dialect or sign language interpreter you need. Please ensure that you've signed and dated the form under the declaration section. The appeal form has an important checklist to make sure that you're sending in all the right information to the tribunal. So when you have finished filling in your appeal form, do not email or post it until you have ticked that you have included the letter from the local authority which gives you the right of appeal, a copy of the EHC plan and all the documents listed in Part K, a copy of a signed mediation certificate if your appeal is about more than Section I. If you're posting your appeal form, we would recommend that you send it via recorded delivery. If you're sending the appeal via email, it's also fine to type your name in the signature box. This section asks you to list any evidence that you're sending in support of your appeal to give the tribunal a better understanding of your child's special educational needs. Please think carefully about the information and documents that you want to send, bearing in mind that anything you send will be provided to the tribunal panel and to the local authority. If you're posting your appeal, you should only send photocopies. Do not send your original reports or documents. And you should send this via recorded delivery. You should try to send in all your evidence with this appeal form. However, this is not your only opportunity to send in evidence. When you register your appeal, you will receive a pack via email or post which will include a table of important dates. This includes a deadline for sending any additional evidence. Here, the tribunal would like you to list the date of the document, the number of pages, the name of the person who signed or wrote it, and the type of document it is. The Tribunal panel finds it really helpful if you can refer clearly to the section of evidence which is relevant. So let's just take a look at an example of a speech and language therapist report. Firstly, you could underline the relevant section of the copy of the document you are sending in. It's better to underline rather than use a highlighter, as the Tribunal will need to make copies of your information for different panel members. Highlighter is generally not picked up by photocopying, particularly if it's the colour yellow. Perhaps you want to underline and refer to more than one section, in which case it's helpful to either enter a number or a letter next to each section to make it easier to refer to. Some parents have told us that they find it difficult to use technology, in which case you can print out the appeal form for posting and you can photocopy any supporting evidence and underline in pen or make a few notes in the margin. Remember, the aim is to help the Tribunal panel get straight to the relevant section of any evidence that you're sending in, so your reasons for your appeal. You could write something like, see underline section B of the Speech and Language Therapist report dated 20th of March. If any of the documents or letters you are sending are quite long, it's especially helpful if you can highlight the sections and refer to them in this way, so that the Tribunal panel can go straight to the relevant part of the evidence each time. So on this section of the form, you'll find the details as to where to send your appeal documents. This can either be done electronically via the email address, and remember that you will need to write New Appeal in the subject line of your email and your child's name. Or if you're posting your form, then this is the address to send it to. We would always recommend that you post your appeal using recorded delivery. You should keep a copy of your appeal form either by photocopying it or by saving a copy electronically so that you can refer to this at a later date. If you send your appeal via email, when you have sent it, you will get an automated email response confirming receipt of your email. Then, usually within about 10 working days, you will be sent a tribunal pack, and this will include a timetable of dates, including the date of when the hearing is, whether this is a telephone, video, or paper hearing. So watch out in your emails for this coming through. We hope you found this information helpful. However, please also feel able to make contact with Rotherham SEND if you need further help or guidance.